there's no doubt that COVID in the past 12 months has changed the way we work, but certainly in the hospital setting, we've had major challenges around protecting our staff, minimizing exposure to patients, knowing that the transmission rate of coronavirus is very high, with staff to staff, patient to staff, and staff to patient transmission. So the whole issue of maintaining social isolation, social distancing, a group of staff working remotely suddenly, moving everything to working from home, and trying to minimize movement around the hospital. I think there were some real drivers for us to really start thinking about how we could use Bleepa in this space. I think the journey for us did start slightly sooner. So prior to the pandemic, we piloted Bleepa in our respiratory medicine department to handle referrals. But just think about how referrals are managed in our case, where we don't have a full singing or dancing state-of-the-art enterprise EPR as such. It would be formal, various referral pathways, intranet referrals, paper referrals, whatever. But there'll be the informal stuff, the corridor conversation, the text message, the writing on the whiteboard in the communication space, you name it, it's pretty variable. And then overlay that with what we're doing with COVID, there was a real challenge to get the communication right. I think WhatsApp became the go-to communication device of choice for all of our medical staff, at least. And so there were some real challenges there. So they are the big changes, I think, that were driving what we had to do.
I think, just to add to that, George, as well, I think as when we first started on this journey with Bleepa, clinicians were already using WhatsApp for a range of communication needs, and it's largely because the technology that you have as an alternative are phones and pages, and those are incredibly disruptive to your clinical work, as we outlined on the Bleepa slides. I think we have to be realistic. This sort of asynchronous messaging communication is not going to fully replace pages. You're always going to need pages for emergency situations like crash bleeps, purely because you can't always rely on mobile signal or Wi-Fi coverage to send messages via instant messaging. But there is a massive body of clinical discussion and clinical referral work that goes on that actually is much more appropriately captured by instant messaging, asynchronous communication, rather than pages and bleeps. And it would be really great to get to a situation where actually, if you're with a patient, you're in the middle of a task and your pager goes off, you know it's for an emergency situation you've got to do something about, rather than for just bloods and a drug chart.
For us, there are a number of things. I mean, one is just access to the images with the referral has been really key. We worked with the Bleepa team to make sure we had a minimum data set for referral data. So during the COVID pandemic, we wanted the clinical frailty score, for instance, and the news score. And so that's been really key in collecting that data, and also making sure that the referrer asks a question, what is it you're after? We've also found it really good in terms of this asynchronous working as well. So we don't necessarily have to traipse around the hospital with a list of patients to see as referrals. We can manage them remotely. But we've also then been able to message the team with clear instructions as to what's going on. And so that's been quite key. And the secure messaging has allowed us to progress patient care perhaps in a faster way. It's also been very good for training, actually. So, our clinical fellows and registrars that are using Bleepa will often sit down with them and go through the referrals together. And it lends itself to that. So there's some things there.
George, I wonder, as a Bleepa user, do you want to say anything about the quality of the imaging on the platform? I mean, you're a respiratory consultant, so
I think the reason. So again, as a chest consultant, we were interested because radiology imaging, and in order to access it, we'd have to go into our system, etc. But actually, on the desktops where we use it, and when we were using it on a Trust mobile device, the image quality is excellent. A lot of mobile devices now, the resolution is really good, but actually very high quality, good enough for us as chest physicians to make our our interpretations and diagnoses are really useful for things like pulmonary nodules, lung cancers, interstitial lung disease. So, those key things.